Big 12 preview part. Duh.
Yes, it's part one of the teams, part two of the preview. Yes.
Duh. Welcome back to the Solid Verbal. I'm Ty. He's Dan. I don't know why I made that noise. I apologize to everybody out there, many of whom have been with us for many years over, Dan, and are excited about the preview season. Maybe I just spoiled this episode by making that weird, like, Grover sound, whatever that was, emanating from my voice box. How are you, my good friend?
I'm great, but this all just makes me think about the fact that it's summer, people travel, people are on vacation, and there is somebody in some like crazy ritzy part of the world who has chosen this moment on like the white sandy beaches of Mallorca or the south of France or wherever that's like tropical and beautiful and ritzy, and it's just all to hear you preview Houston. Right? That they're taking this moment to like, all right, I gotta see. I know I'm here in Nice, but I need to hear Ty break down what he thinks Willie Fritz's vision for the Houston program is, which I think is so funny and also like incredible. Like, I think it's great, but it is a funny one too. Hey, sorry for the quick interruption, but it'd be incredible if you considered subscribing to the Solid Verbal YouTube channel right down below. Continue.
Well, it is part two of the Big 12 preview. We did part one, which again was the bigger picture, zoomed out view of the state of affairs with this conference. Now we're going to start diving into individual team previews. On today's episode, we've got Oklahoma State, Kansas State, and Utah. We've also got the bottom, the perceived bottom anyway, in BYU, ASU, and Houston. And then two tweener teams kind of in the middle, UCF and Texas Tech. We'll do the other remaining 8 teams on part 3. That's coming up a little later on this week. Thank you if you are back for more. Hit follow, hit subscribe if you have yet to do so. If you're already there with us, please give a rating or a star review wherever it is that you can. All that stuff helps more people find the Solid Verbal. And as I've been saying for 4 years now, Verballers.com is where you can go to be part of our ever-growing community, the teaming community of Verballers that get access to ad-free episodes and the bonus content that we put out, and the Discord server, which quite frankly is popping off right now because everyone's talking about the college football video games. We got dynasties that are forming, all sorts of cool stuff. So stop on over at Verballers.com if you're interested in that. If not, that's cool too. We're just happy to have you here. We're excited to be talking through all things college football. 3-part previews for all of the power conferences. The Group of 5, the 2-part Group of 5 preview is already in the can. You can go back like 2 weeks ago and find that episode if you are ever so inclined, Dan. But excited to pop the hood and talk about some of these teams with you in a little bit more detail.
Yeah. I like that you are selling Verballers.com, the dynasty aspect, because people are really getting super into it. But it is going in a direction where we're just going to become a dating site for college football fans.
Well, that's okay. I'm okay with that.
Like, are you into Mountain West football and experimental jazz? Go to this Discord server. You might find the one.
Yeah,
it's fine. I would love that. I love bringing people together.
Experimental jazz. You know what? Speaking of experimental jazz, as you know, this year I am steering into all the goofs that I have made. I don't think you've made any yet, at least not that have been reported to us.
I'm pretty sure I got the Sublime singer's last name wrong on our last episode. I may have said Newell and meant Noel, but other than that, yeah, I'm sure I got a ton wrong.
This might be the best one. This comes courtesy of our friend Mason out on Twitter, who DM'd me and said that I talked a lot about Mitch Griffiths running the air raid, I believe, at Marshall this year.
Yeah. He did transfer, Yeah,
he transferred from Wake, I believe, to Marshall. And he apparently announced on LinkedIn just days before our preview dropped that he is retiring from football. And at present, I went and I checked the LinkedIn just to verify that this is all true.
Yeah.
At present, he started yesterday, Dan. We're recording this on Wednesday, the 24th of July. Yesterday, as a project engineer with a contracting firm. So good on you.
Hey.
Going pro in something other than sports.
We wish
him nothing but the best in his new role as a project engineer.
Announced that in mid-June. But started the job yesterday. Okay.
So I was wrong. There's another thing I got wrong. If you catch anything, we're open to hearing more about it. Not if you disagree with the opinions. That's different. But factual stuff, hit us.
Thomas Castellanos, just not able to get through doorways. What is he, 6'10", 6'11"? It's like him and was Zach Edey, right? They're just built very similarly. Yeah, that's okay.
You suggested that we just keep adding inches onto how tall Thomas Castellanos is. By the way, did you see that Tom Brenneman's going to be calling games in the CW?
I did, with Nick Castellanos as his analyst, yes? No.
Well, he might have a chance to call a Thomas Castellanos game, which would be awesome.
Yes.
That would be the universe kind of rallying behind a very weird situation.
Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah.
Okay. All that being said.
I don't like you because you're dangerous. That's right. I am dangerous.
The Big 12.
Ooh.
Where do you want to start?
I don't know. You tell me. You're on a roll. You have the teams we're talking about today.
Well, we're talking about the power tiers.
True.
We talked about the power tiers in the last episode. And the three teams that we agreed are in that top tier were Kansas State, Utah, and Oklahoma State. You also had Kansas in that power tier, in that contender tier, which we can talk through on the next episode. But why don't we start with those three teams? Both of us had Utah I had Utah over Oklahoma State. You had Utah over Kansas State.
Yeah.
You did the Utah preview. Let's go deep on Utah. Let's start with the Utes here. New member of this conference. Cam Rising is back. Brant Keithy is back. They've got the transfer in at receiver, Dorian Singer. Presumably, this should all make the offense much better.
You would think.
How does Utah fit in this new world order in the Big 12? How much better do you feel that they are compared to their new peers in the conference?
I don't think they're far and away way better. You look at Utah's record outside of the Pac-12, and it wasn't sterling in the Power 5 teams that they've faced. And so perhaps they were built to be a zag in the Pac-12 itself that had, a lot of prolific passers going downfield, built with speed rather than loading up along the lines and developing linemen consistently across the conference. And I think the Big 12 has a little bit more of that when you look at where the top is with some of the better Oklahoma State recent teams and Kansas State recent teams and Iowa State recent teams that there have been some NFL caliber heft in the Big 12. I'm sure I'm forgetting teams as well. But Utah's in a really good place because of Cam Rising's experience. He's back after not playing last year, sitting out with the brutal knee injury he suffered in, I think it was the Rose Bowl, right, against Penn State a couple of years ago. And so his return and savvy and experience and season, whatever, it's great. The offensive line, I never really worry about. There's going to be a couple new faces, but I think they should be fine. You mentioned the skill talent. That should be in a good place. Micah Bernard got hurt earlier in the season last year. He's back. And so I'm never going to fully believe Utah is going to be a downfield threat consistently until I see it, because that's just not been the MO. They've looked to run. They've looked to control the ball. They've looked to tight ends to be the big weapons on offense. But if they're able to get anything out of whoever, Dorian Singer, Money Parks, like any of those guys, Micah Pittman, I think, is still a college football player. He's dealt with some pretty bad injuries, so hopefully he can contribute after Oregon and Florida State stops. I think the offense is going to be fine. I think we're going to look at this as a very efficient scoring offense that maybe it's not going to be the most exciting watch, but they're going to score, 28 to 38 points a game, depending on the opponent, and it's not going to hold them back. So that's the way I look at Utah's offense. Utah's defense, they replace a lot in the secondary, a couple big contributors, Sione Vaki, Cole Bishop, guys like that. So that's Morgan Scalley, the defensive coordinator specialty. They return enough up front that I think we're going to get what we've gotten out of Utah. And I think that's a great sign if you're a Utah fan. Morgan Scalley was named the coach in waiting, I think 2-3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
And so we might be looking at Kyle Whittingham staying on to transition this team to a new conference and then bidding Salt Lake City adieu and doing so, having a ton of success, a long-term career in Salt Lake City. But Utah's in a great place. Schedule-wise, Utah has Oklahoma State and Arizona in back-to-back weeks, which should be pretty difficult, but hosting Arizona. At Colorado, Iowa State, and at UCF to finish out the year, I think could be extremely difficult just in terms of the style jumps. Going from Colorado, who is, I'm sure by that time, a team that has a good handle on what they want to do on offense under Pat Shurmur, airing the ball out, hopefully improved on defense, and Iowa State, which, has been a more ball control offense built out of that defense, the unusual defense that they run. And then UCF with a mobile quarterback and KJ Jefferson in a tough place to play. Utah's a team that's built to weather those couple of stretches, but still going to be extremely difficult.
Yeah.
The altitude, I'm a big thing with that.
You love that.
That's a new wrinkle for Big 12 teams, having to deal with that kind of change in, I don't know if it's change in preparation, but you breathe differently up high.
Interesting. Well, look, Utah was 8-5 a year ago, and when you consider all the bad injury luck that they had, it's kind of amazing. It is a testament to Kyle Whittingham. The incredible number here is that there were 157 games missed by starters and backups on the 2 deep last season.
Oh, yeah, decimated.
Almost unlike any kind of injury luck we've seen before. It was brutal. And so the fact that they won 8 games, they did lose the Las Vegas Bowl to Northwestern, a terrible game. I guess depending on your perspective, a terrible game, 14-7.
Mm-hmm.
But I agree with you. I think this is the moment for Utah. I think this is the moment where they've got all these guys back. I think you can count on Cam Rising, provided he's healthy, to give that offense a lot more pop. I think you're right to point out that the offense at its best is one that's got a playmaking tight end. They've also got that back in Brant Keithy. I agree there are rough patches on the schedule, but it still looks workable to me because I think they're the best team in the conference. So the limb that I'm going out on.
Oh, more takes. Why it burns.
Yes.
Is Utah over 9.5 this year.
Okay. I mean, look, if it is a secret behind the scenes, this is Kyle Whittingham's last year. You get a little extra juice in terms of motivation and players being all in. I have no reason to think it's his last year, but naming the coach in waiting certainly could point to that. I don't hate that. I don't hate that at all. I think they are the closest team to a finished product. The other teams that we like have bigger questions that are on the contender tier, whether it's Oklahoma State and a new defense, Kansas State, a new, I think Avery Johnson's going to be terrific, but still, new offensive linemen, new weapons. There's just questions about Kansas State, new offensive coordinators, co-coordinators. I think just Utah is in a more bankable place in this moment.
That brings us then to the next best.
Okay.
And we sort of disagree a little bit on who Utah will play in the Big 12 championship, but I've got Oklahoma State. 10-4 last year. You'll recall they did go to the Big 12 championship game. They lost to Texas. They beat A&M in the Texas Bowl. This might be the most straightforward preview that we do all year. I am, as I've said on the last episode, the biggest Oklahoma State flip-flopper in the whole world. I have never once been able to figure this damn team out.
Yeah.
And I will probably go back and forth a good 5 times this year on whether I like them or I don't like them. Last year, everything flipped on the bye week, which I think we've unpacked a fair amount here on the episode or the episodes we've done. But mainly what they stopped doing was playing musical chairs at quarterback. Remember, they were doing the 3-way quarterback rotation between Alan Bowman and Garrett Rangel and Mike Gundy's kid, who's since transferred. But they stopped doing that. They gave the reins over to Alan Bowman. And then they decided they were just going to build the whole thing out of Ollie Gordon.
Yes.
And Ollie Gordon finished with
simplified the offense. Yeah.
Close to 1,800 rushing yards, was obviously in the Heisman discussion. They get both those guys back this year, right? The paradox, though, of Oklahoma State last season was their offensive line. Because statistically speaking, it was not a good run blocking unit. It was very good at pass protection. But that speaks to how good Ollie Gordon is. And it speaks to how much better he could be if the line does improve this season. My assumption is that we're going to see improvement across the board because that entire line is back. It's going to be the most experienced line in college football. Okay, I forget what the number is. It's 214 or 15 career starts that are returning.
Right.
You would assume some element of progression on that front. So I don't think there's going to be any kind of step back with respect to their rushing offense. The optimism for Oklahoma State, to the point of it being straightforward, is that they're going to be able to pick up where they left off. We've got another year of British comedy legend Alan Bowman playing quarterback.
Yep.
Year 7, which is not the greatest sign in the world.
It's okay.
But year 7, he's back. Ollie Gordon is back. He was in the news recently, got picked up for a DUI at the end of June. Mike Gundy came out clumsily and said that he's not suspending Ollie Gordon.
He said, who among us?
Yeah, he sort of hand-waved DUIs, which, just my opinion here, is not a great look, not a great approach.
Everybody else on the road was very lucky.
Yeah. I will not drone on about that. I would like to believe we all feel similarly about that was not the right way to approach this, but it's old news at this point. I'm not going to harp on it. Outside of Bowman and Gordon, there are 8 other starters back on offense, including Brendan Presley, who we talked a little bit about last episode. You really like, and I do. Rashad Owens, he's back out wide. 91% of the offensive production is back. Why are they dangerous? It's basically the same team as last year. It's the same team that went on a run, that beat Kansas State, that beat Kansas, that beat Oklahoma, went all the way to the Big 12 championship, and now they've got a year of seasoning under their belt. That's why they're dangerous. Is that not the most straightforward thing in the world?
Yeah, I think that's reasonable.
It's easy. Compared to some of these other damn previews, this one's easy.
Yeah,
now,
and Oklahoma State, which, continue, sorry.
They are in danger if British comedy legend Alan Bowman gets hurt.
That's true. Most teams are, if their starting quarterback goes down. Yeah.
You could say it about 133 other teams, for sure.
Yeah.
It is not unique to the Pokes. But you know my stance on 7-year guys, Dan. 7th-year guys.
Yeah.
You only get to
brittle?
7 years if you're injury prone.
Yeah.
All right? You spend a couple of them hurt like Alan Bowman did. You battle the injury bug. There is that risk. So hopefully the line can improve. Again, they weren't bad as a pass blocking unit, but overall it'd be great if that line could improve, give a little bit more insurance that he can stay upright. Like Zane Flores, the backup, exciting prospect, or Garrett Rangel, like we saw what Garrett Rangel's about, but like Zane Flores could end up being really good.
Sure.
It's just a different calculation if you've got a backup quarterback in there and he's kind of figured this thing out on the fly. So that would be like something to keep an eye on. I would also say it's a very similar story on defense. 9 starters back, 10th nationally returning production. I think they're deeper this year, which helps. Last year it was Brian Nardo's first year. He switched things up to a 3-3-5. Statistically, the worst defense that Mike Gundy's had since 2018. Bad against the pass, bad in the red zone, gave up a ton of big plays. From what I have seen, they've made some tweaks now to improve the pass rush. I think that would go a long way if they're successful in that. It's reasonable to assume, again, the defense is going to be better.
I think so. I mean, look, when you're starting off with what they have up front, especially Colin Oliver, who at his best is not just all-conference, but perhaps all-American, at his best, you can get after the passer. You can do a ton on defense if you have a pass rush. And Oklahoma State, at their best, has that.
They
weren't a great defense, though, but at their best, they have it.
They got to get better as a pass rushing unit. If the key to the offense is staying healthy, the key to the defense is improving the pass rush, in my opinion. So, look, I like Oklahoma State. I also think we're going to know what they are real quick, because the first 6 weeks of the season are South Dakota State, the reigning FCS champion. They're at home, but still.
Jacks.
Jacks are a good team.
Yeah.
They can push them. Arkansas, Tulsa, Utah, Kansas State, and a West Virginia game, which is the telltale token letdown game before a bye. That's the one that they're going to end up losing.
Yeah, the weird thing last year about Oklahoma State, you mentioned Alan Bowman and discovering that, like, just build the whole thing out of Ollie Gordon. They were the most explosive rushing team in America and had one of the worst explosive pass rates in America. So they were not able to turn the gravitational attention that Ollie Gordon had into finding people over the top, or developing an offense that finds people over the top, or giving Alan Bowman the confidence to find people over the top. And it's weird to talk about Oklahoma State still and not talk. I might like Brendan Presley a lot. He's probably one of the best 3 or 4 receivers in this conference, but like, he is not of the caliber as some of the like Tylan Wallace types, where you're just like, that is an James Washington, unguardable option deep. That's not what they necessarily have. And I hope that they're able to find and develop that this year, because that gives them a wrinkle, an option that makes them that much more unstoppable if Ollie Gordon is able to replicate his 2023.
I think over 8 is a good bet. Right now, their
Okay.
over-under is 8 wins. I think it's a really good bet. I am not making it because of those injury concerns. And for as improved as I think they are, and for how I think they did get better from a depth standpoint as well, I'm concerned that like a 7-5 season could happen if either Alan Bowman or Ollie Gordon go down. And
True.
I feel like they're a really good team, but a lot is built around the health of those two, which is why I personally wouldn't make the bet, even though I think over 8's good. And obviously I've got them going to the Big 12 title game again.
These are the defenses that Oklahoma State will face on the road as they try to add more pop to their offense. Kansas State should be good. Then it's BYU, Baylor, TCU, Colorado. Like it aligns pretty nicely with, I think, Oklahoma State's offensive aspirations, if those defenses are reasonably within where we think they might be.
You mentioned K-State. K-State's over-under is 9.5. So Vegas really likes them. They won 9 games last year, 9-4. They won the Pop-Tarts Bowl, which was, we're all excited about the Pop-Tarts Bowl. Talked about the schedule on the last episode. I think it's favorable. I like K-State a lot. It's hard not to. I have, again, more questions about K-State than I do Utah. You have K-State up against Utah in your projected Big 12 title game. What do you like about K-State? Where are they dangerous? Where are they in danger?
Avery Johnson. Johnson is the danger. This was a team that could not find a ton of, I keep using the word offensive pop, so I'll come up with some sort of new turn of phrase.
Pizzazz,
zest, excitement, explosion, whatever. Losing Deuce Vaughn changed that a little bit for Kansas State. Losing the receivers that they lost, Malik Knowles from a couple of years ago, changed that. So Avery Johnson needs to be so good that he's both generating bigger plays with his feet and with his arm and finding dudes downfield, whether it's buying time to find dudes, whatever. That's where it's going to come from. That's the explosion. That's the danger. It's Avery Johnson. The offensive line should still be good. It's new coordinators, right? The offensive line coach is, elevated along with Matt Wells to replace Colin Klein. I think they're going to be very good. I think they should be able to run the ball. It's DJ Giddens. They should be able to run the ball well. That should be able to open things up for K-State. You mentioned the schedule's pretty great for K-State this season. The defense has returning players on all 3 levels. Now, again, star power up front. They lose a couple of key dudes, especially guys who got after the passer super well. But K-State is one of those programs that seems to just very slowly build quality depth. And you pair that with what should be a good offense, maybe not a great offense, but a good offense with an exciting quarterback, a solid, if not great defense. I think they're going to be good. I think they're going to be I think when you look at the defenses in the Big 12 last season, Texas may have had the best, but of the returning defenses, they might have been the only top 40 or top 50 scoring defense in points per drive coming back. So, and as I think a lot of good things about K-State at this point. I think they're another one of those teams like Utah. It's not necessarily like, where's the star power? Where's this? Where are there actual legit questions with K-State? And Avery Johnson is one. He's new full-time starting quarterback. We'll see if he can handle that kind of workload. But of what we saw of him last season, there's a lot to be encouraged by. There is a lot there. And so I think K-State still has a very, very few questions.
So my 2 biggest questions about K-State are obviously whether full-time Avery Johnson is as good as part-time Avery Johnson.
Right.
I think it's totally fair. I think you've spoken to. It is a relatively new offense in terms of returning starters, which you can kind of mitigate a little bit when you've got good coaching and good players, around. So I'm less as concerned with that. I do think it's a step back along the offensive line.
Sure.
I think it's reasonable to expect a step back, but again, you have more of a scrambler in Avery Johnson, more of a dynamic playmaker with his legs. All due respect to Will Howard, I think you can, again, kind of balance that out. So defensively, star power is lacking, but they're deep. There's a lot to like here, and especially when layered in with the schedule, over 9.5 feels good to me. It feels
good to me too. And whatever concerns you have about offensive line, their co-offensive coordinator is the elevated offensive line coach.
That's
so
right.
Somebody that should be intimately aware of what this line can and can't do and game plan around that. So that gives me some hope that over 9.5 is not a bad bet. So I like it. I really do. the non-conference schedule, I mean, it's Tennessee Martin, at Tulane, Arizona, BYU. Like, it's just, I don't know. I think it's good.
Yeah. Okay.
It's a nice schedule.
Let's keep going. You mentioned BYU. Let's talk about BYU.
Yeah.
We are jumping around a little bit here. We both had BYU in the bottom
Yes.
of our conference projections. And their over-unders 4.5. They won 5 games last year. Vegas expecting somewhere around the same number. I'm going to mention this again. I said it a few weeks ago. I said it in the last episode that we did. Literally every blind item I have read about Kalani Sitake is quick to point out how great of a coach they think he is and how much they're confident he will, quote unquote, figure it out.
Okay.
Everybody. They all say it. I've never met Kalani Sitake, but everyone smart people who, in many cases, don't want to give their names,
Yeah.
seem to be very confident in this guy's abilities as a coach. I hope that's true because he's got his work cut out for him this year, Dan.
He does.
Last season started out 3-0. BYU went 2-7. The rest of the way, they lost their last 5. Their only 2 conference wins were against Cincinnati and Texas Tech.
Oof.
Generally speaking, I'd say this. BYU got bullied. Bullied along the lines last season. Virtually no push on offense in the running game. On defense, they changed up the scheme a little bit. They blitzed more, but the pass rush was one of the 5 worst in college football.
It might have been the worst. Yeah.
It was bad, right? Jay Hill changed things up, but it was just they never got the pass rush going at all. I think to be within 1 win of a bowl game in spite of the bad line play, maybe that speaks to Kalani Sitake's chops.
Sure.
Now, for what it's worth, this year they're bringing in TJ Woods to coach up the line to improve the running game, hopefully. His background is like old Wisconsin power football. I don't hate using the Wisconsin template here. You can't do it without a line, though.
Right.
And that's the problem. That's why I think BYU is still kind of a work in progress here. You combine the line issues with the schedule, which is freaking brutal. And that's why BYU is in danger. They've got all the tough teams in the conference, plus a road game at SMU, my beloved SMU.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why your over-under is like 4.5. It's going to take a while to kind of get past that, in my view. And I don't think the program is there from a talent standpoint. You talked about it, like focus on you. That's the tier that these guys are in. That's very much the tier they should be in. They need to focus on getting talent and kind of getting these pieces organized. That said, they might be dangerous or more dangerous if they can get better quarterback play this year. Jake Retzlaff last year, who came in, played a bit, was very inconsistent.
Yeah.
They also got Gary Bohannon this year, who transferred in. I was encouraged by Jake Retzlaff a year ago because he gave them some pop with his legs. And I remember we did a preview. I talked about that. That was why I liked his at least potential, but the passing game wasn't there. He could run, but we didn't see it through the air.
No.
My hunch is that Gary Bohannon wins that job. If he does, he'd be an upgrade because the receiver room is pretty deep. Also, he's got some experience, right? He's played high-level football at Baylor in his past. Well, I also really like their running back, LJ Martin, who kind of emerged last season.
Yeah.
It's just a line play thing. You know, you could stock the skill talent until you're blue in the face, but if you don't have the blocking up front, it's going to be a problem. So hopefully they can get beyond the getting bullied part of things, either on offense or defense, and the pass rush can improve. There are just too many holes on this team right now for me to feel better about BYU. But I will, kind of revert back to what the other people are saying with the blind items. Like, what do I know? Everybody else is saying he's a good coach. Everybody else is saying he'll figure it out, and in time he will. So I'm not going to sell too hard on BYU long term, but this year, again, I think it's still kind of an ongoing rebuild.
Yeah, if you want to be encouraged by BYU, they did show more fight at the end of the season against the Oklahoma schools with Retzlaff, right? That's when he was playing near the end of the year. They took some big hits in October. They were losing by 30, 40 points to quality teams. They did beat, I think, Texas Tech. But yeah, that's both discouraging that they were that out of so many games, the meat of their schedule, and then encouraging at least that there was fight at the end of the season, that they could come together.
Definitely.
But you're patting a team on the head for losing close is not the most confidence inducing phrasing that I have here. So I'm out on BYU for the time being, but I accept a reality in which BYU can steadily improve if, and you're right about this, the line play gets better. I mean, there's so much there that, like, I think they were one of the worst teams in terms of going 3 and out last year. Like, it's just an impossible way to win, right? It's just an impossible way to win if you can't figure out a way to march down the field and just pick up a first down here and there. Like, you need to build on something, and I think this is a build on something year for BYU.
Yeah, there's just like too much going on.
Yeah.
Too much going on, too much to fix at once. Kalani Sitake could be Nick Saban, and he's still not going to figure it out this year because I think there are bigger issues that need to first be resolved. While we're talking about rebuild, let's talk about Houston. I can knock that one out pretty quickly.
Sure.
Houston's over-under is 3.5. They went 4-8 a year ago. They fired Holgo, and now they're bringing in Willie Fritz. The over-under is 3.5. It is the lowest in the Big 12 per DraftKings. If you are a Houston fan, though,
tell me about your squint. Is that what you're going to do right now?
No, I'm not squinting.
Okay.
I'm not even going to pat anyone on the head or humor anyone or lead you astray. Yeah. This is going to be a bad team this year. But if you are a Houston fan, Willie Fritz has a long history of making teams dangerous in time. He's familiar with this area, generally, having been at Tulane. You give a guy like that power conference resources, I think there's a lot to be excited about.
Okay. I
am extremely optimistic about what he can do over the next couple of years with this program. It does feel like there's a real plan. It's just not going to happen this year.
Right.
It's going to be a significant rebuild at a minimum along the lines where they really need it. 2 things that I point out here. A, I like the fact that they're getting away from the Dana Holgorsen pass-happy system that he's run. I like that Willie Fritz is going to bring things more into balance. He's going to add a little bit more oomph in the running game. Both Donovan Smith, who's the quarterback, did you tell me that some people were projecting him as a first-round NFL pick?
I think so. I don't get it, but yeah, that's sort of a straw man. But I don't know if anybody serious is, but yeah.
Both Donovan Smith and Parker Jenkins, the running back, are going to benefit from more balance on this offense.
Definitely.
From not being too much on one side. I think that's a good thing. More to the point that there's a plan. I like that plan. The other thing I'd add is I'm not super optimistic about this year's defense.
No.
There's another deal where it's a new coach and they're switching schemes on that side. Willie Fritz was very aggressive. He pulled in 17 defenders via the portal to help jumpstart the operation. It may not work. It could be better than expected.
Right.
Okay. I am not framing this preview out in terms of danger or in danger. I think mostly Houston's going to be in danger every week, especially because the schedule doesn't do them any favors. But bigger picture, why are they dangerous? They're dangerous because Willie Fritz is a program builder. Okay.
I agree.
Don't count on much this year. Don't touch that over-under. It's not worth your time. It's not worth your money. But let's talk in 2 years about where Houston's at with the resources that Willie Fritz is given. And I think we could really be talking about something here, especially in a conference that for the foreseeable future feels very wide open to me.
It feels wide open, and Houston is well positioned geographically to be like, USF or somebody like that. That's a G5 program and Houston's not anymore, obviously, but that's a program that can sort of build depth in a way that others can't because so many players are from that part of Texas, from East Texas, that have that option to come home in the portal if Houston is especially aggressive once again moving forward in the portal, that they can find star power at quarterback, that they can find receivers, that they can find difference makers on defense, that they are positioned, so close to A&M, LSU, all of these places in the SEC that are going to build up too much depth, especially what are we going down to, like 105 scholarships?
Yeah.
That's so there are going to be, it's going to be an even more active portal. Houston, I think, is well positioned. I like Willie Fritz. I like his ceiling. I don't know about these coordinator hires per se, but they're the first coordinator hires. I don't know. I think he's going to succeed at Houston. You are right. I don't know if to say, 2025 Houston could be interesting. If you play things right in terms of recruiting, which Houston has done, and the portal, I don't know. I think you can improve to like the second tier of the Big 12 pretty quickly.
I don't think it's that hard to do.
No.
It's just not going to happen this year. Like, if it happens this year, Willie Fritz is a genius.
Yeah.
He's a genius. But I think there's just a lot of work to be done, and it's going to be a prolonged project.
And last year, by the way, Houston, not even that far off. Like,
no.
The Texas game was weird. I think they got hosed on a call late, and then they basically lose twice because of that loss. They get killed by Kansas State the next week. Like, I think the wheels just sort of fell off after that Texas game. But the best of Houston last year is a bowl team, for sure.
I like Willie Fritz. I do. I really do. I just think it's going to take a little bit longer.
Yeah.
Why don't we round out our focus on U tier?
Okay.
And give me the lowdown on ASU and Kenny Dillingham.
Okay. So this is an interesting one. I think they're borderline wild card just because I think he's inventive, super active in the portal, lost a couple key guys on defense for sure. I mean, one within the conference and BJ Green, their most disruptive defensive lineman, leaving for Colorado. But they've been super active in the portal. I never liked the Bo Baldwin hire, and they made that change, which I think is important. I don't love Marcus Arroyo, but
I was going to say.
I like Kenny Dillingham. I really do. I like Cam Scattaboo, who came up from, I think, Sac State and got a bunch of playing time second half of last year. We saw, him have an impact in the USC game. Like, there are guys. Now, losing Elijah Badger, I don't love that. Like, they lost too much, and I don't know how competitive they are in the NIL space in this moment. But just like what they did against UCLA, when they didn't even have enough healthy offensive linemen to field a unit, and they were just like, well, we're going to go swinging gate, right? That we're just going to be unorthodox with it. They're going to lose to everybody clearly better than them. But if a team is only kind of better than them or inconsistent, I think ASU can jump up. You lose Jaden Rashada. He seemed like he was going to be the quarterback of the future, but maybe he was beaten out by Sam Levitt, and he's now a backup at Georgia. Like, ASU is not going to lose for lack of trying. And so I think it's going to be another adjustment season for ASU, but I think the win total could be not necessarily indicative of where they are, but by the end of the year, I think we're going to look at their schedule and their results and be like, oh, they lost to UCF by 3, right? They lost to Iowa State by 4. And they were like leading in that game. Like, I think you're going to see a lot of proof of concept with ASU this year. So, behind the scenes, we'll see. We remember Kenny Dillingham talking about, like, there wouldn't be a program if it weren't for this booster. Those kinds of conversations. I think ASU is building. I'm buying Kenny Dillingham stock. I don't know. I don't think they're making a bowl game this year, but I think they're going to be involved in like 3 to 4 really fun games.
Schedule's brutal, man.
It's really tough. So ASU in front of them right now, they open the season, new coach at Wyoming, new coach at Mississippi State, but both of those games are in Tempe. A tough out in Texas State, and that's on the road. At Texas Tech, and obviously we'll know more about the Red Raiders come week 4 or 5. That's a tough way to open the season. They've got Kansas and Utah back-to-back, Oklahoma State, UCF at Kansas State. It's at Oklahoma State, UCF at Kansas State back-to-back, and they play the Territorial Cup in Tucson.
No.
It's real tough. It is. I just think they're going to be involved in plural toss-up games. How about that?
They were 3-9 last year, and they played hard.
Yeah.
They played hard. And
they also lost to Arizona by 173 points.
But let me rephrase.
Yeah.
They played harder than you would expect for a 3-9 team.
Well, and the quarterback injuries they were dealing with as well. Yeah.
They were dealing with a lot. It was Kenny Dillingham's first year. But I always use as an indicator, and there aren't really stats that kind of reinforce this. I don't even know what numbers you would look at. But the eye test, it seems like they care. And if you're losing 9 games, more often than not, you've got a team that just stops caring. I didn't see that last year. I was encouraged. I remember talking week in and week out about Arizona State last season and not giving them a hand wave just because they were a bad team, but having to actually sit and consider, like, is this a game where they could play it a little bit closer? And they had a few of those last year. I think that speaks volumes about Kenny Dillingham.
They're in the USC game, I believe, in the second half. They lose that game by a couple touchdowns, but they're fully in that game. They lose to Cal by 3, Colorado by 3, and Colorado, that game was definitely winnable. Both of those games were winnable.
Yep.
The Washington game was winnable, if you remember. Washington is, I think, tied or losing that game. They needed a pick 6, 15-7. Washington ends up in the national championship. Had a lot of tough time with ASU. Beat Cam Ward, Miami quarterback, and Wazoo. Scored nearly 40 in the process. Beat UCLA and are drilled otherwise. But, like, I don't know. I think there's creative firepower there.
There's fight there.
There is.
All right. Now.
Yeah.
UCF.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, baby. So here's a fun one. UCF led in all 5 of the conference games that they lost last season, and they yacked it away.
Yeah.
They ended up 6-7. They lost the Gasparilla Bowl to Georgia Tech, as we mentioned on our ACC preview. UCF is truly the ultimate dilemma for me. I think they could be really good. I have said that many times over now. I think it's a good enough schedule. It's not the easiest schedule, but it's workable. They've got a lot back. Gus did a great job beefing up the roster in the portal. I really want to be pro UCF. My issue is the Ted Roof thing. I can't do it, Dan.
Okay.
I'm not going to let myself get hurt again like this. I'm just not. I'm sure Ted Roof is a fine dude. He loves his family. He's nice to people at the local Wawa. I don't know if they have Wawas down there.
They don't. Publix.
He's nice to people at Publix, the cashiers.
Yeah.
He sucks as a defensive coordinator.
Okay.
Truly, deeply sucks.
Okay, so you can say Brent Venables had a hand in last year's Oklahoma defense, which is fine. That was one of the most improved defenses in the country, right?
Yes.
Oklahoma in 2023, they finished top, I think, right around 30 in points per drive allowed. And if you look at like the most improved teams from 2022 to 2023, they're up there defensively. So like, he might not be fully in charge of this defense, right? That like he's a co-coordinator. The talent seems to be improving on defense. I'm just saying UCF can win a bunch of games without a top 30 defense.
They can outscore people.
Yeah.
But the Ted Roof thing, I'm sorry, I'm just hung up on it. To this day, like over a decade after he left Penn State, my friends and I on our text thread still use the term leaky roof to describe any and all defensive lapses that we see when we're watching Penn State. I don't know how he keeps getting work. Like, the best explanation that I had for you when we talked about it on Slack the other day is extortion. He must have pictures or compromat or something.
I think he's just the nicest dude, probably.
I don't know. Here's the case for Ted Roof, okay? Here's the case. If you're going to try and make the case. The case for Ted Roof is that, say what you will about his track record, but he does have to his name coaching up rushing defenses. And UCF was terrible against the run last season. Otherwise, they were okay. They weren't bad against the pass, but they were really bad against the run.
Mm-hmm.
Against the run was the fatal flaw of the defense. So I'll say this. If the UCF defense is, how do I want to phrase this? The UCF defense is both the reason for them being dangerous and the reason against them being dangerous.
Yeah.
All right. On one hand, you got 8 starters back from a decent unit a year ago. On the other, you got Ted Roof, which I'm just not sold on.
Right.
Other than that, the offense is loaded. Like, Gus went hog wild. He got KJ Jefferson, no pun intended, from Arkansas. You put him in a system like this, very exciting. RJ Harvey rushed for almost 1,500 yards last season. He's back. Kobe Hudson, who I know you love Kobe Hudson, solid receiver.
Mm-hmm.
He did more. Gus did more work in the portal to beef everything up.
Penny
it
Boone
seems to me like Penny Boone. It seems to me like a near certainty that UCF is going to average at least 31 points a game. They're going to score like crazy.
Yeah. This
is a very, very, very potent offense that is extremely dangerous with a defense that I'll be kind to Ted Roof and say that it's got a lot of upward mobility. Okay. They could potentially get Billy Napier fired if they go to Gainesville and win in early October.
Yeah.
Which I think is totally on the table right now. So I like this team. I want to like them more. And I want Ted Roof to prove me wrong. All right. I don't want to be mean to the guy. I never met him. He probably is a really nice dude. Maybe he's got pictures on you. I don't know.
Schedule's broken up nicely, by the way.
It is. There's a lot to like about this team. I want to like them more. The over-under is 7.5, by the way. And it's a very, very interesting paradox between 7.5 over-under, but like tied for third per DraftKings with a plus 950 number on them winning the Big 12.
Right.
Which I think speaks to, we can see the downside, we can see the upside. The answer is usually somewhere in the middle for UCF, and I'm hopeful. I'm optimistic.
Would you say 8.5?
7.5.
7. Okay, I think they win 9 games this year.
You want it in the volcano?
Yeah, throw it in the volcano.
Oh, more takes. Why it burns.
I think that's a decent play. I don't mind
Okay.
that. That's where I'm at on UCF. Well, am I being too harsh on Ted Roof?
Probably.
It's personal for me, man.
I know. Look, if it were like Don Pelham or Brady Hoke coaching, you got the volcano smoke in your face if you're watching on YouTube.
The UCF smoke is in my face. Continue.
Yeah, the leaky roof. Then, yeah, I don't know. Like if Florida really starts struggling, like if they beat Florida, 9-3 is pretty reasonable.
I'm jotting this down that you're
over UCF. Yeah.
All right. Beware the leaky roof, man.
Okay.
I hope you're right. I do. Because I want this team to excel. I think it'd be fun as hell. And the offense is going to be awesome. It's going to be maybe the best TV show in all the Big 12. But the leaky roof, man, just bring an umbrella.
Well, it's okay. So to be fair, it's also, you're counting on KJ Jefferson from years ago, right?
Yeah.
So what KJ Jefferson is today, whether it's because of injury, whether it's because of the turmoil at Arkansas, whatever, or, losing big receivers and never appearing the same way, should have a star receiver in Kobe Hudson. But like, the thing that gives me pause about saying UCF can go 9-3 and taking the over there is like just penciling in KJ Jefferson to be one of the best, like 2 quarterbacks in this conference is not necessarily like the wisest thing. Like, things change.
Okay. Let's close out this part 2 episode talking about Texas Tech. Also, an over-under of 7.5. 7-6 a year ago, they beat Cal in the Independence Bowl. Tech had the best recruiting class in the conference, and they were 23rd nationally. I looked at the list that Athlon put together. 4 of the top 10 recruits in the entire conference ended up at Tech. Mm-hmm. So, more to the point, Joey McGuire is doing a good job. The recruiting is good. I think the other bit of good news that Baron Morton is back. If you like Baron Morton, hopefully they will be healthy at quarterback, have better health at quarterback this year. Taj Brooks is back as well. Rushed for over 1,500 yards. That's the good.
Yes.
The bad is that the receiver room, the entire line.
Offensive line, yeah.
Like all this stuff has been reconstructed via the portal. And a lot of it, like the secondary is going through a full reboot. So there's a lot that is back to like. I don't think it's enough though to feel good about this team. So I would probably go under 7.5 if I were bet. I'm not going to throw that in the volcano. I'm trying to be positive in the volcano as best I can.
Yeah, I mean, they're just going to need to win toss-ups if they're going to hit that 7. I see them in that 6 to 8 range. Obviously, that's not saying anything given their number, but like schedule's really tough. And I know they've recruited well, and they're going to be starting probably, I think it's Micah Hudson, who was a 5-star freshman.
The receiver, yeah.
Yeah, I'm just not a Baron Morton guy, and in the offense's defense and Baron Morton's defense, like they just have been constantly dealing with quarterback injury stuff with Donovan Smith and Tyler Shuck and Donovan Smith leaving, and now it's Baron Morton's team. Like, what's the Spanish soccer strategy called? Tiki-taka. There's a lot of that to like the Zach Kitley offense, the tiki-taka. Just that's like quick little kicks, right?
Yeah.
On the soccer pitch.
Pitch.
See, that's a familiar term to soccer and football fans around the globe, Ty.
Yes.
I think they were really smart to build the whole plane out of Taj Brooks last year, and tough runner, and they were much better once they started building their offense around him. But I still think they need to do something downfield, and I don't know if Baron Morton's that guy. Like I said on our Part 1 episode, I think he'd make for a really nice big team backup, but like how high can you fly with this passing attack right now? That would be my question. Throw in a new line, throw in new receivers, and then you look at, by the way, I don't know how closely you looked at their schedule. So Texas Tech is at Wazoo early, I think week 2.
Yep.
Okay. At Arizona, Baylor, at TCU, at Iowa State, Colorado, a bye, at Oklahoma State, West Virginia. It's just given what they're doing in terms of starting over on offense, I think they're going to have good games. I just think they're going to inexplicably lose something like 38-13 twice. And you're just like, I don't know how close you can get to 8 wins if that's your team and that's your schedule. So, I don't know if you said 7.5?
7.5, yeah.
I think I lean under with that.
I would go under. Yeah, I would go under.
I don't think they're built to be consistent right now. And their defense is fine. And they do retain, their safety's really good with CJ Baskerville. He's a star, and there are returning guys on all 3 levels, but I don't know. It's a star power thing to me, and they were led by their defense, as weird as that sounds to say, with Texas Tech recently. I hope the stability health-wise at quarterback is something that they're blessed with this year, because they've dealt with too much there. But I don't know. I still think their ceiling is relatively low because of it.
Do you think Joey McGuire is the right guy?
I do. He's dealt with a lot. You're in Texas. You're a major conference team. I think it's not crazy to think that you should have a borderline star at quarterback pretty often. And I know that's what they thought they were getting in Tyler Shuck, and they just had bad injury luck with him. But I don't know. They opened the season losing to Wyoming and scoring 3 points, I think, in that second half.
Yeah.
It's I think you got to aim higher. I don't know if it's a Zach Kitley thing. I don't know if it's a system thing. I don't know if it's a development thing. But I don't know. Texas Tech seems like one of those schools that should always have a top 5 quarterback in this conference, and they just haven't.
All right, that does it. Part 2 in the books. On our next episode, we're doing Kansas, Arizona, and Iowa State, TCU and Cincinnati, West Virginia, Baylor, and Colorado. So a lot of intrigue, I think, on part 3, if only because we covered most of the highs and all of the lows on this episode. Part 3 is going to be for that meaty middle, which we know there is a very big meaty middle this year in the Big 12. It arguably is these teams that will make the conference most interesting, not the least of which is Colorado, which I know you've got a lot to talk about there.
Sure.
I've got a lot to talk about with Iowa State. I'm excited about Iowa State this year and much, much more. We're excited. We're excited to be doing this. If you picked up anything that we got wrong, or if you would like to add further commentary, we're always at solidverbal@gmail.com or anywhere on social media. You can find us, hit us up. Would love to hear from you. Hit follow, hit subscribe on your podcasting app of choice if you have made it this far. If you've been with us for a while, a star rating, a positive review, wherever you can. That stuff genuinely helps us get in front of more people. Tell your friends about the Solid Verbal. And if you're really into what we do, again, it's for ballers.com. That's the ad-free episodes, bonus content, Discord access. We're working on gaming and all that stuff that we're going to roll out as we get a little bit closer to the college football season. So bear with us here as we get a little bit deeper into the month of August. We'll start talking shop on that front. But part 2 now in the books for the Big 12. We got one more to go.
Yes.
That's all I got, Tim.
That's all I have.
All right. For myself, Ty Hilderman, for that guy over there, for our model volcano, which tried to suffocate me, take a toa. This, of course, is the Solid Verbal. This is part 2 of our Big 12 preview. We will talk to you all on Thursday. In the meantime, stay solid.
Peace.